to envision that I would be playing a really iconic character in a really iconic franchise, it would have blown my mind.
One of the lines that I love.
I'll get you! That line was not meant to be in the game.
Where's Code Veronica?
I agree, like it needs a remake.
What was Xianyun like in Genshin Impact?
She's really unintentionally hilarious. I would just find out the thing I wanted to do, and then I just figured out how to do it. Hi, thank you so much for having me. I love that you're like, let's talk about all the horror stuff.
All the horror stuff, yes. All the good and chill stuff that you've also been a part of. You know, let's keep that aside. Horror is the one.
Like, we don't need to hear the cute stuff. We don't need to hear about anything beautiful and colorful. I want blood and gore.
Blood and gore, yes, that's where I live. How's your 2025 been so far?
Well, it's been an interesting year. I feel like it's been an interesting year for a lot of people that are in the Southern California region just because of fires and just a lot of change. It's interesting because for me, I already had a lot of change going on towards the end of 2024. So 2025 feels like a continuation of more growth and more change. But I'm excited, actually. I'm actually weirdly excited about 2025. I feel like it's a year of growth, but in a good way. It's like we've planted all the seeds and we've gone from like winter and we're starting to see spring start to occur, I think. So, yeah.
It's just one of the fun things about what you've done so far is, you know, people know you as Claire. Some people might know you as Betty from What If Marvel series. Some people might know you as Xianyun in the Genshin Impact. But a lot of people might also know you from the work that you've done as a host, which has been so fun. You know, Arcade Cloud, Proc-Tarca, like it's so fun to see you host. Like, what was it like to be in that space at that time, helping producing these videos, being on camera host?
That's so funny you bring that up. Okay, so I really enjoyed that time period because it was kind of when I was first getting my feet wet within the industry, like, you know, doing red carpets, doing, like you said, Arcade Cloud. I did a lot of stuff for Hot Wheels, you know. What was the other one? Oh, 107 Facts. Oh my gosh, those videos. Those videos. Listen, of all the things, that was those videos that like it becomes painful after a while. Because imagine 107 facts you have to go through. And then you have to say everything perfectly because people are like, well, if it's a factual video, she better say everything right.
Right. Totally understand the pain.
It was actually a lot of fun because I got to use a lot of my improvisational skills too. So, because I used to do a lot of stand-up and stuff. And then within that hosting, I got to like play and understand people and like learn more about, you know, whatever topic I was talking about. So it was actually a fun time. I did enjoy it, which I'm sure you get, because you know what it's like. You kind of you know, get a little gift from every time you do an interview. You learn a little something, you grew a little more. So it was some fun times, you know. Oh gosh, Arcade Cloud though. And I'm like, oh gosh, what did you find?
I have watched the videos. I think the last videos I saw, I could be wrong, that was 2017, maybe 2018. I'm not exactly sure which year, but I was watching a few videos, and I mean, I was like, you were still great, even though it was like a few years back. You still were like awesome, like perfectly delivering everything, saying everything, and with all the energy that you have. I was like, this is great. I should have learned a thing or two from you when, you know, I should have found you before. Should have learned a lot of things beforehand. But it was so great watching all those videos, even now.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's fun times. It's part of the growth process. I don't think I've changed too much, honestly. I don't think I've changed too. I mean, maybe don't nobody go back in time and be like, she looked younger then. Maybe don't say that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's that excitement for it, I think, was always there. Yeah, and I think that's probably what you probably were getting. So
yes, definitely. I mean, it's very interesting to know because obviously that this is sort of in the moment where you're also going towards voice acting and trying to get into games and the industry in general. But how did you even come up to the point of, let's try doing this on-camera stuff or in-camera hosting stuff, interviewing stuff?
That's a good question. Actually, you know what? I do know how this came to be. So I decided to
Okay.
you can't do this anymore, but I decided to crash I think it was an Oscar party, or maybe it was
Wow.
or Golden Globes party or something, like one of the after parties. And I remember there was Paris Hilton was the DJ at this party. And there was this little VIP section, and in the VIP section there was a guy in there with like the glasses that were supposed to be like the new high tech glasses that you could see this and this. And I kind of started chatting it up with him, and he was like, "Oh, he's like, yeah, he's like, I do like red carpets and blah 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 blah." And he's like, "You should." He goes, "I really like your personality." He's like, "You should look into it." So I started doing that, and it all kind of like started just happening. I don't know. I think I looked up auditions too through like casting networks, and I don't even know all the different, like mediums you could find it. And then people would also be word of mouth. Like some people would be like, "Oh, Stephanie really loves, pop culture and comic books," because I was writing reviews for comic books at one point too.
Right.
I know.
Crazy.
So all kinds of stuff. And I just slowly, you start to like build this network. Like I had a friend who like, I wrote a couple articles for like Variety magazine, and it would just all kind of like came to be because I was very open to it. I was very much to the universe. I was like, I'm open to you. Like, bring it on. Like, what do you got for me? I want to try it out. I was very yes. I was like, yes, and this, yes, and that, Yeah, until you get to a point where you're like, okay, I need to make sure that I'm making money,
Right. Yeah.
because I've got bills to pay, I got food to put on my table, and then it became like the jobs, like you're saying, like Arcade Cloud and all of those that were more like specific jobs that were put up for auditions, and then I would get it. So yeah.
Wow. Crashing. Okay, I have got to put that on my list. That's happening next.
I don't do things the way that most people do. When people ask me, how do you do this or how do you do that? I'm always like, yo, I'm going to be real with you. So, yeah.
There's a secret that you don't know. Yeah.
Okay, I had been watching way too much. You know the show Alias? Do you know the show with Jennifer Garner?
Yes. Yeah, of course.
I had been watching way too much Alias at the time. And it was an older show at that time, but I was watching I think I was watching on Netflix, and I was like obsessed. For some reason, I was in this world and I was like, I think I could get myself into this and this and this and this. And I did. I totally did.
My goodness. I cannot believe that is kind of like became the influence. I'm like, yes, and you did it. It's so cool. It's after all of that, and now being part of Resident Evil franchise, the community is so huge. There's always chatter online, especially now, especially after every Resident Evil game. The next Resident Evil, what is going to be? Is Claire gonna be in there? Is Leon gonna be in there? All those questions. But just looking back, literally a few days ago, it's been 6 years of Resident Evil 2 Remake. January 25th, 2019, the game came out. All the fan interactions that you have ever since, all the cosplays, the fan arts, the stories that you got to hear. How has it been for you to play one of the most strongest characters in the Resident Evil franchise?
I mean, first off, it's wild to say. So you're saying it's literally been 6 years, but I've been playing her 2 to 3 years prior to that. So I have been within the world of Resident Evil and Claire for so long. And I mean, it's funny because sometimes you can get a little bit lost and be like, oh, it's been going on for this amount of time, da da da, and you kind of like don't realize it. But like when I like step back, like if I look back at like how we were talking, Stephanie, who was doing the red carpets and all that stuff, like to envision that I would be playing a really iconic character in a really iconic franchise would have blown my mind. I don't know. I would have been like, really? I am? Okay, awesome. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
So I have to remind myself of that sometimes. Like, even though it's been 6 years, like I've been able to partake as her in 3 different projects now, like, so it's like within the video game and Resident Evil 2, within the Netflix series, and then within the film, you know what I mean? And so it never gets old to realize it. It never does because one, she's a fuck. Am I allowed to cuss?
Of course, go for it.
She's. I'm gonna try to keep it semi-clean. I'm gonna learn something this year.
Okay. All right, try it out.
I've really, she's a phenomenal character. Like, she is a character that I've been fortunate enough to grow with, that has the space to grow into, you know? And so, and she's fun and she's spunky and she's passionate and she's driven and she's heartfelt, but she's also going to kick your ass, you know?
Yes.
And so like she's a wonderful character, you know, and I love her. Like, I really do. Like, I sometimes will look at her and go like, oh my God, how fortunate am I that I get to play her, you know? So yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's insane. It's so cool. I still remember the moment when it was announced on E3 that Resident Evil 2 Remake is happening. And the whole audience went nuts, like, oh, and it ended, the trailer ended with the perfect line of Leon. I think it was Leon. Oh no, it's coming back, and just literally Resident Evil 2, and it was so cool. And playing that game, and people have done so many playthroughs. There's been memes, various cosplays, so many different things. And obviously, as you mentioned, you have been playing that character 2 to 3 years before the game released, and you did the voiceover, you did motion capture as well. Did you at any point in time recording in those sessions stop by and thought, wow, I'm actually playing a very interesting badass character right now?
I mean, I did for sure. I definitely did because she was one of the first few characters that I saw as a kid that was a female character you could play as. So like there was really only like Lara Croft and then there was Claire. Like that was it that I really knew of, unless I was playing like 007 and then I was like, you know, playing, you know, was it Natalia, I think it was, and stuff like that.
I think
like,
so. Yeah.
So, but it wasn't the same, you know what I mean? Like they weren't like the leads really, you know? And so, so yeah, for sure, 100%. Now, I didn't think it was going to be that big though. Like we thought we were making a remake. Like I was just happy to be a part of it. Like, and I think that's what makes it really special because it's like we just treated it like, oh, this is so special. We're not trying to make anything like massive. You know what I mean? And then next thing you know, it was like boom, like
boom,
very successful, like huge deal. And it was like that was a lot because it was like, oh, whoa, that happened out of like nowhere. So yeah.
Did you ever find like what was it for you when like people started knowing and recognizing you, maybe tweeting at you or asking, like DMing you? Like what was that like initially when there was a lot of incoming coming towards you?
That's a weird feeling. So initially what I did was the night before the game came out for the release, like it was hitting midnight, there was a GameSpot, GameStop. No, GameStop?
Yes.
GameStop. I always get GameSpot and GameStop mixed up. So there was one at one of the malls. And so I went in line with everybody for the game release. And I was all excited and I couldn't say anything because it wasn't told like who was who yet or anything. And I remember waiting in line. I was like towards the end of this line. And then finally midnight hit and I went to the guy at the door and I said, hey, so I'm actually in this game. And he's like, what? And then I was like, yeah, I play this character, Claire Redfield, in it. And he was like, what? And so like, and I hadn't had that experience yet. Like, so I didn't know how to say it, but I was like excited about it. You know what I mean? And so I wanted to make sure I was going to get a game too. Cause I was like, that was a long line. I was like, I don't want to wait in this line that I can't get the game. And so he's like, oh my gosh. He's like, well, would it be okay if I let people know? And I was like, well, what time is it? And he is like, well, it's midnight now. He's like, I could let everybody in and I can let them know if you're okay with it. And I was like, okay. I didn't know how to feel, you know?
Right.
And so he did. And like, everyone was like, what? And so like, I was like, oh yeah. And then people were like, can you autograph my game? And I was like, I haven't done this more. You know what I mean? Like, so then the people in the back, you know, like were giving me like permanent markers. And I was like, what do you want me to put on here? You know? And I was
Do
like,
I
I don't know if
sign?
I
Do I
remember.
write?
Yeah, I just autographed this thing, and I was like, I didn't remember like lines at the moment because I was like,
Of course.
I haven't recorded the game in 2 or 3 years, so I'm just like, okay. It was an interesting feeling. It was a very interesting feeling, and then people are, can I take pictures with you?
Yes.
And you're like, how do I
What?
feel about this?
What did I do?
Yeah, what do I do? Okay. So it is a weird feeling for like the beginning, I would say for sure. After a while, it can get a little weird because sometimes people, like if you're at a convention or something, they just like kind of take advantage. And then that's when you have to learn how to create that distinction between like, hey, I understand that I'm so and so in this thing, but I'm also a human. I just have to go to the bathroom. No, you cannot stop me while I'm on my way to the bathroom. Like,
Crazy. People do
so,
crazy stuff. Yeah.
oh, you have no idea. I had one guy who I was kind enough to, like, on my way to the bathroom say, okay, yeah, I'll take a picture. He goes, can I carry you? I said, no,
What?
no, you cannot carry me. I was like, if anything, Claire carries the person not being carried. Okay. So if
Yeah.
you want to play Sherry, that'd be a different story. But no, I will not carry you either.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not the
um,
Sherry I want? No. Yeah.
no.
Crazy.
So yeah, so sometimes you have to create a little bit of boundaries. But
Definitely.
it was such a cool experience, and yeah, and randomly I'll get recognized like out of nowhere. That's a really weird one.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
yeah.
Do you remember any specific moment where you just out of
Yes.
nowhere?
Yes. I was
Must be happening
building
a
my
lot.
PC. I was building my PC, and I was at this I forgot what the store was called now. And it was like COVID time, so I had a mask on, and I was talking and I was paying for everything. And this guy runs out from the back of the, like, where I guess they like fix everything up and stuff. He just runs over and he's like, "Oh my God." He's like, "Are you Stephanie Panisello?" And I'm like, literally, I have a mask on. And I was like, "Yes." Like, and I'm like, "Yes, why?" And he's like, "I am such a huge fan." He's like, "Didn't I know you from all your work and I watch all your streams." And I was like, "Whoa.
Wow.
Whoa, okay." He's like, "Can I take a picture?" And I'm like, "Sure." Like, I have a mask on, you know, like you can't, like, it was just so funny because I was like, wow, we're at that level that my voice is that recognizable now.
Right.
That I'm like, whoa, okay. That one was probably the most out of the blue. It's different when you're at like an event or something and people like randomly, because they know you're there. But at like this was like normal day-to-day life. So with a mask on.
I want to obviously go back to the point when you're doing motion capture. What was it like doing the motion capture for those scenes? Because were you like, I know there are some scenes that you did with Nick, but most of the scenes were different. So how is it like for you? Because that's such a big game, and then you're doing motion capture, kind of like your first big role.
As like my first big role, I mean, it wasn't so bad. I think the learning curve is just making sure that you understand and are comfortable. Like I had to get comfortable with like all the different things that were attached to me
Mhm.
that kind of pull you out a little bit or can pull you out, you know? So I had like a big old battery pack on my side, and I had to make sure that if I was going to do like a stunt where I fall, I don't want to fall on the battery pack. So I have to think about things like that, you know? Um, Making sure to go back into T pose. You've got a face mask. You know, if I'm having these moments where I'm carrying Sherry and she's got a face mask and I got a face mask, you know, and like the cameras are like, or sorry, not face masks. We've got our cameras on, like they're going to bump. So like it was little things like that were more technical that I just learned how to be aware of. Other than that, it was just a matter of play and feeling very comfortable with like our director. Like Tom was fabulous. Like he really allowed us to like, and really encouraged us and pushed us to make sure that we like, you know, push the envelope and like really figured out who our characters were. So I actually enjoyed it. I think it's a lot of fun. I also enjoy doing stunts. Like if I'm allowed to do most of my stunts, I'll do them. I'm not going to do the crazy stuff because I don't want to hurt
Yeah, of
myself,
course.
and I have to keep going on, you know what I mean? So it's
Right.
like if I hurt myself, then that's the end of it. So
Yeah.
but I like some of my basic stuff, like basic stunts, like I'm all for. I'm like, let's go. You know what I mean?
Oh
So
yeah,
yeah.
definitely. And lovely to see that it was like kind of like easier for you, but at the same time, a kind of like a new challenge. And there's so many fun moments in the game. And I think one of the lines that I love that Claire says is, "I'll get you, you fucker." It's just a wonderful line. I was like, yeah, I'm on with her. Like I'm not crossing her line. I'm not gonna do anything. Just it's just like such a cool and fun line. How fun was it doing that or saying that line? And has that become your favorite in any way?
100% it's become one of my favorites. Like it depends on when people say like what's your favorite line, like I'm like, well, do you like it clean or not?
Right.
If you want some cussing and some anger, that's my favorite. And it's interesting because that line was not meant to be in the game. That line was just something that I was like, can I try one more thing? And then they allowed me to, and then that's the one they chose because they were like, oh, we needed that intensity. That was what we were looking for, because it would have kind of just ended with me picking up the pendant and looking at the door where Sherry was taken. And that was it. But it wouldn't have had that like same fire, And I think that's what I love about Claire is that like intensity, that like passion. And so I was like, this moment is huge. Like this is like this is like one of those like peak level kind of scenes. So I was like, I'm going there, and I love it. And I love that it's become such a big deal now.
Yeah, it's a
Oh
big
yeah.
deal. Love that. People always come by with that line and they always go with it. And it's one of my favorite things in the game as well. It's so fun. And one of the other favorite things obviously that people have memes about and all of that stuff is Mr. X and how he keeps on chasing. And it's just one of the craziest things. And mods, always people have different
Oh
kind of
god.
mods coming in. Some very intense mods, some very 18 plus mods as well. So there's a lot of different kinds
Yeah,
of
a whole
mods.
lot of
Yeah,
those.
a lot of those. People love doing that. But I know that you've played other Resident Evil games as well, and we have a Lady Dimitrescu and you have a Mr. X. So if you would you rather be chased by Mr. X or Lady Dimitrescu?
Oh, whoa. Oh, whoa. Okay. It's funny because you say Lady Dimitrescu, and I just think of Maggie
Yeah,
immediately.
yeah,
I
right.
like can't like not see Maggie. So I was like, do I wish to be chased by Maggie or by Mr. X? And I'm like, no, 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 not Maggie, not Maggie, Lady Dimitrescu. Okay. So okay. I feel like Mr. X was really good because it's psychological. It's not so much what he actually does to you per se, it's more so the process of him getting to you that really, really messes with you. Um, I feel like if I was chased by Lady D, I would have been killed. There would be no, you know what I mean? It wouldn't have been just, like, psychological, it would have been, like, just torturous. So, oh, man. That's a really hard one. I think I gotta stick with Mr. X just because I think Lady D would be almost too intense.
Right. Right. Her claws coming through. Yeah, very intense.
Yeah.
Piercing
Yeah, I
right
don't
through my
want
god.
that. Like, he just kinda punches you, you know what I mean? And you're like, "Ugh," you know?
Yeah. Right.
Um,
Quick death.
but, like, her just, like, slashing ugh, no,
Yeah.
no.
I've been killed a few too many times by her. I was like, wow, that's not a good way to go. So yeah, definitely not doing that.
No, not at all.
I have to say, I feel like in Resident Evil 2, even though I played Leon first, and a lot of people have done that, and a lot of people have done reverse as well, I feel like Claire had to go through a lot more because she had to fight William in this very different form towards the end as well. And she has to go through so much with trying to take care of Sherry, and then obviously her mom is there. So much is happening as compared to Leon, I feel like. So I do hope there's always talks about people wanting the Code Veronica and the remake of that. And I cannot imagine how many times people have asked you about where's Code Veronica? Just that. Not even if you are in it.
Oh
Where is
no,
it?
never. I've never been asked that. Never.
Goodness, yeah. People just go nuts on that Code Veronica. I think when I announced you, even the few people questions is like, ask her about Code Veronica. Like, of course,
It's
yes.
always the question. It's so fun. Here's my deal though. How many people have actually played Code Veronica? Have completed Code Veronica? And if they have, then I want to know what they would do to modernize Code Veronica, because I'd be curious, you know. Otherwise, I'm like, I feel like I hear everybody say Code Veronica, Code Veronica, Code Veronica. And I'm like, dude, I agree. Like, it needs a remake. Will not deny this at all. I have no say in this, though. I don't get to say if there's a Code Veronica. I don't get to say if I get to play her if there's a Code Veronica. So it's really hard to kind of like decide. Now, what I will say is I love that people want more Claire. I love that people want more me as Claire. And if I have an opportunity, then I would jump on it, you know? But then I would be thinking about what would I do differently from the original, you know? Because not everything translates the same. So, and that is a game that needs the TLC for a reason. So, yeah.
True. Yeah, yeah, definitely. And if it happens, obviously, a lot of people are excited, and they will know. And if you get to play it, I'm super excited. I hope that happens because you've done Claire justice in not only Resident Evil 2, but also the CGI series and the movies. And I loved it. And I think, like, you mentioned about streaming earlier as well, and you have played Resident Evil games now. So, according to you, the games that all you have played, which one that you have enjoyed the most?
The most of the ones that I've like streamed that are like the newer ones.
Yes.
Okay, obviously I love 2 because 2 I feel like there's a lot of replayability to it. I know that I'm in it, but also I just like that you can replay. Which I think that's a good a good meter for knowing if a game is good. That's for me at least. If I want to play it again, that's a good sign. I would say though, oh man, 7 was brutal. Like, there's no way in hell I would do 7 again. They did a phenomenal job at making me never want to play it again because it was so gruesome and intense and traumatic. Uh, so, like, 4 was fantastic. I really loved Village, though.
Ooh, okay.
Village has a special place in my heart, and I think it's because I really like the storybook feel of it. Because they kinda, like, took something that was horror, but they made it with that, like, fantasy-ish genre to it, which I think that combination really does well for me personally. So I really enjoyed it because I just didn't know where it was going, and it played into, like, that storybookness of it all that kind of made me wanna go on the adventure and continue, you know? So I really enjoyed Village. I just again, I don't want Lady D to chase me, but, you know.
I think a lot of people enjoyed Village, and I think this is probably from the male side, probably a few female side as well, which is Lady D, and that's why we enjoyed it. And I think that's one of the reasons that a lot of people wanted her to step on themselves, like their characters all the
Yeah.
time. Like, yeah, it was a
The
lot of Lady
obsession
D.
with Lady D, my god. Oh
Insane.
my god.
Continues to this day.
It continues to live on. It continues to live
Continues
on.
to that. But I mean, you said you did not. You were terrified, like horrified with 7. There was one mission, House Beneviento, which I loved it, and that was that horror house with dolls and
Oh,
the
yeah.
baby. Yes, that was the
Mhm.
most terrifying one for me, and I loved it. What was it for you?
The crying baby that's like,
Crying baby.
oh, oh. By the way, I'm gonna freak you guys out. Some of you guys know, but my baby doll cry. Have you heard my baby doll cry before?
No, I have not.
Since crying babies seem to be your biggest fear. Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow. So you can be a baby actress as
I
well.
can be a creepy baby actress. Yeah, I'm
Wow.
waiting to get paid for that one day. We'll see.
Gosh damn. We will get back into the conversation in just a few seconds, but I just wanted to let you know that if you're enjoying this episode, consider hitting the like button and also subscribing so that you can watch more episodes just like this every single week. And also hit that notification bell icon so that you don't miss any notification on when the next episode is coming out. And now we will jump back into the conversation. You playing this character of Claire, as you mentioned, like the CGI movies and stuff, she's now older as compared to obviously Resident Evil 2, which is younger. What was it like for you, or like what are the differences that you found that Claire has as compared to Resident Evil 2 versus the Infinite Darkness or Death Island?
Well, one, she doesn't cuss as much.
Too bad. As I was
To
downgrade, I was like,
fair, to be fair, they only allowed me so many cuss words, okay? Because they were like television and film, like it, like the rating starts to go up a certain way. So, so that was one reason. However, she is, if you notice, her thought processes are a little bit more like Resident Evil 2. She's younger, so she doesn't, and she's never done this before, so she's very reactionary. So she just kind of like reacts to what's going on around her in that like survival kind of mode. And then as she kind of gets older, it's more, she still has that fieriness, so that it never goes away to like those moments of reaction. However, her thought process, if it's not emotionally like linked to something, is going to be a little bit more responsive. So she can actually read what's happening a little bit more versus in Resident Evil 2. And that's kind of a maturity thing in general, I think. So I think that's one of the things that kind of switches over. She also is passionate about the specific thing that she does, right? Because she's got a drive now. She's works for an NGO, you know? So like her mentality is very driven towards what the objective of her NGO is. So and so I think that's the difference too versus when she was young, you know, doesn't really know the direction she's going. She's just trying to like, you know, she's throwing shit at the fan and hoping something sticks versus afterwards she is like very like, okay, this is pointed and da da da. So I think that's where it kind of shifts. It's just that like intention and drive and having like a mission than more so in the very beginning, which was like strictly survival. So
yeah. And I think I like the older version as well, because as you said, she's more in some ways driven. She knows what she's doing now much more than she was in the previous game. And it's very fun to know that obviously with games you don't have scripts there with you. It's still being written, it's still being prepared, and stuff like that is still working upon. Whereas in movies and shows, there's scripts mentioned, like it's all written, it's all there, or you can at least go through it, most of it. Does that change the way you perform the role?
So we do have the scripts written in games too. It's just because it's such a large it's such a large game that like we may not start at the very beginning, so it won't be chronological. So I think that's where the difference is that because it's not chronological and things could shift and change, and like you said, there might be rewrites or there might be all this, that can make it a little bit challenging to know like what direction to go in. So like as an actor, it's like our part to like ask those questions, you know? So like we know we have a place to go to, if that makes sense, because we don't want to start so big that we have nowhere to end, you know, or like we want that growth process to happen. So it is different, like you said, from you know, the film and the TV shows and stuff like that. Although sometimes those will also potentially be a little bit, you know, those there might still be shifts and things. However, it's not so large. So it is easier to like comprehend beginning, middle, end, you know, like where are we going? So and it won't be as long because usually things like that, like for a film, like 2 hours is usually like pretty average film. I don't know what the movie ended up being, but so in your head, you're like, all right, 2 hours worth of XYZ versus like in a game. I mean, if you cut together every cutscene, it's probably maybe
Two and a
3 hours, two
yeah
and a half,
three
probably
yeah
two and a
something
half
like
to
that,
3 hours.
right?
Like, so technically it could still be like a film, but there's a lot that happens in the gameplay that, you know, and then there's all the ADR that's dialogue of little things too that weren't in the cutscene. So yeah, I mean, they each have their challenges. It's just You just got to be really good at asking questions. Like, and that's one thing I am a stickler about. I'm like, but what's happening here? Why is it happening here? What happened before this? What happened after this? Like, why am I doing this? So
It's so fun to see how Claire has moved up and how she has evolved with the from the game to the series. I'm curious to know how much Stephanie has evolved from when she started out to where she's now.
oh my. Um, I mean, quite a bit. Quite a bit. She still has that, like, yes, let's try it mentality. However, not as much as probably in the very beginning. Because in the very beginning, when you're kind of starting, when I started my career and everything, it was very like, let me try everything and I'm willing to work for free and like da da da. And then after a while, you go, okay. You know what I mean?
Not free
And then
now. Yeah.
yeah, well, you can't. You can't be. You know what I mean? How are you
Yeah.
supposed to live?
Right.
So there's a reason why they call it show business. If you don't got the business mentality and understand how to feed yourself, there's no future. So
Right.
yeah. So I would say that it's like I've changed in like that understanding of things, although I was pretty smart back then too with all of it. And then I would say that it's funny because I feel like in this industry, you never really make it. It's really all part of a journey because there's times when I've had peaks and then there's times when I've had valleys. And like and they go up and they go down and they go up and they go down and it keeps shifting and I would say one thing that I miss a little bit and that I've been learning how to like reconnect with is that same pure excitement and endless possibility, right? The endless possibility feeling, right? And the thought process of like anything is achievable. Like I literally, when I first moved to LA, I was like, oh, what's E3? Oh, E3 back then was only for professionals. You could not go if you were not a professional. Now they've opened it up to everybody, but you couldn't go. And I remember asking my roommate, what's E3? And he explained it to me. And I was like, oh, I'm going to go to E3. He's like, okay. And I did. I went to E3. You know what I mean? Like I would just find out the thing I wanted to do and then I just figured out how to do it, And I remember my roommates thought I was such a different person because everything I said, I want to try that. And then I would literally do it, you know? And so I think that in a way, that's something that I would look back on and be like, that's where I want to keep connecting to because that's what keeps the fire and the love of it all going is understanding your why and like understanding that like all of that, And so as much as I would say, yes, I am, Stephanie me back then would be like, oh my gosh, Steph, the things you've achieved, like what you've worked on this and you've done this and you have your own home booth and you have, you know what I mean? And like, yes. And it's amazing and it's beautiful and it's wonderful. It's just sometimes you get a little bit crushed along the way. You know what I mean?
Mm,
You kind of lose a little bit of that steam. And I think a lot of it for me personally has just been just the industry's direction with AI and the
right.
strikes and all this stuff, which I think a lot of people have felt the effects of. Um, and finding that passion again for it. So it's funny because it just like I said, it's just part of the journey. So it's like, how do I pivot and recreate again? Pivot and recreate. And that's what the whole journey has been and will continue to be, like, so now I may be in this point and then next thing you know, I'm back up here again, or I'm somewhere in the middle, just kind of being like, oh, now what? You know what I mean? So it just depends. And so I think that that's it's just life, I guess, too. And that's like, how we were saying, like when you feel like you go in one direction and you're like, oh, I didn't make it or I didn't get it or something like that. This industry is literally moments of feeling that and then going right back to the top again, Like, so you never know. Yeah.
You can watch extended episode of this episode and other previous episodes of the podcast by becoming a member of the channel. Not only that, you will also be getting early announcements of who's coming next on the podcast. Your questions, if you have any for my guests, will get the highest priority, and your names will be shouted out at the end of every episode. So if you want to support this podcast a little bit more and help me make more episodes every single week, consider becoming a member. All you have to do is click the join button right next to my channel name, and you are ready to go. Thank you all so much for the continued support. You've been part of this Resident Evil community for such a long time. It continues to be growing, people coming by, and now you're also part of another community which is also strong, which is the Genshin Impact, and stepping into or being in the world of this community of Resident Evil to also now stepping into another world, another community of Genshin Impact. What has it been like for you to step over?
Oh my gosh, that's so different. It's so vastly different. It's been a lot of fun though. It's been a lot of fun. It's such a, obviously my characters are quite different.
Yes.
But also very strong characters. I do tend to play a lot of strong characters, which I don't know.
Hey, hell yes. That's awesome.
Not complaining. Yeah, so Cloud Retainer, who's now become Xianyun, she's been really, really fabulous to kind of like learn about and then also play Genshin Impact and understand what the fascination is with this game, understand that it can actually be just as stressful trying to pull for a character banner that you want or a weapon. Oh my gosh, it's like a boss battle trying to get what you want in these things, Oof. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun and it's so lovely. And it's such a funny like juxtaposition when I go to conventions. Like later this weekend, I'm going to have a convention for Genshin Impact specific kind of genre, but I'm sure there's going to be, Claire Redfield fans there too. It's just so funny because if you go to one of my conventions, I do like this whole interactive experience for my photos, and it's such a different vibe. My Resident Evil versus Genshin version of things. And it's so lovely because the fans will be like, I still like the ones that know me from both will be like, I don't understand how you can do both of these types of genres. You know what I mean? And then other ones will be like, oh, I get it. Because, she still has a good heart and she still got this, and they kind of connect it through. But it's been so fun. The Genshin community's been lovely as well, So they have their own love for Mama Bird. kind of a Lady D kind of love for Mama Bird, I feel. So
yeah, seeing those kind of love too. Yeah, that just goes way beyond, especially if you go on Instagram. It's just way too crazy. Her voices and the way she says, there's some weight to it. There's some calmness to it, and I like hearing her, and like feels like the most like the wisest person in the entire universe of that Genshin. And so how would you describe that character, and how different was it to play a role like that?
Yeah, so because when I first got her, she's, Cloud Retainer, and Cloud Retainer was like, she's an Adeptus god. She's all knowing. She doesn't like budge at all. In the beginning, you kind of don't like her, right? Because she's almost like too straightforward about what it is. And then you start seeing little like snippets into her humanity and like how she can get like really worked up about like little things, but yet she's all knowing and like all encompassing in all these ways. And that's when you see her little human moments that were really fun. And then that's when I started realizing like, wow, she's really unintentionally hilarious. Like she does not mean to be funny. She's not trying to be sarcastic. Like she is like so honest that it's so funny. So actually she's a lot of fun. Very different from Claire, because Claire is like sarcastic. She'll like tell you things, you know what I mean? And like if she's funny, she's like, yeah, I kind of know I am. You know what I mean? Like, but Cloud Retainer and Xianyun, she doesn't know. She just like she just she just falls for everything. You know, if you're in a marketplace and people are trying to get her to get a good deal, she'll buy the 20 of something to save the dollar. You know? So and it's just so funny. So it's a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun to kind of play her and kind of be in those different worlds and different mentalities too. Because she does, yeah, she just, I mean, I guess that is part of me. She just keeps talking until she realizes what she's what she's getting to.
Yeah. Oh wow. So there's a lot of you in her. I
In
see.
every character I play, there is something will
Makes
connect you
sense.
with them.
Of
You know what I
course,
mean?
yeah.
Something, you know, like even if she's very wordy and somebody else might play her as like she knows everywhere she's going with everything. But my version of her, I was like, I think it could be kind of funny if she just is kind of like rolls and rolls and rolls and rolls and then goes, oh, you know what I mean? And like, and then has her like sassiness and like, you know, one does not agree with that, you know, and like have like big moments and like that's how I connect with her, you know. And so again, I'm glad that I get to play and I get to add those moments of things. Especially I love a little humor and everything, especially things that are very intense. You kind of need that to kind of cut through it. Unless we're talking about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I never got to have a moment of levity as Maria Flores. So,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I don't, yeah, there's no point or place where she can just go humorous all of a sudden. And like, there's a killer trying to kill you and will kill you if you stop
Yeah.
somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
definitely.
that was a different type.
A lot of screaming. Yes. Too
Oh
much
my
screaming.
gosh, so much pain in that game. I literally left and it's like, so our director, he's like, okay, he's like, now I want you to think about something. He got me in like a meditative state. And he's like, I want you to think about puppies. I want you to, he's like, I want you to leave in a good place. And in my head, I was like, is he gonna kill the puppies now? Like in my head, I'm like, is what's gonna happen? Is he trying to get me in a really safe space and then he's gonna leave me with like torment again? But he never did. He really did want me to leave on a good note, but I was like, I can't see the light. It's so dark. I see puppies dying in my head.
I see puppies, all right. They are not in the good state that I would say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like, something bad's gonna happen to the puppies.
Yeah. Must be it must be a traumatic experience at the same time. But also, I feel like I don't know. Is it also the same thing for you where you're able to push out all the frustrations in a way because you're playing that character because there's so much screaming involved because there's so much pain to deliver.
Um, I don't know. So interestingly enough, so Maria Flores is you know, spoiler alert for Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but technically every victim dies. That's just is what it happens, you know. The difference is though, she does have like a bit of strength in her, you know, and they called her like the definitive final girl, you know. And she does have that like still that push and a drive, but it's a very different survivor from Claire. 'Cause Claire is like more hero survivor. Like she knows she's gonna freaking make it and she's gonna save everybody. Versus Maria is like, oh my gosh, I've been sitting down here for weeks. You know what I mean? And you don't even want to know the stuff I've been through. And she's just kind of like it comes out of like the little bit that she has left. So it's a different mentality. I mean, I don't know if I would say I was able to get like frustration out. I would say it's more so tapping into things that maybe when you didn't feel like you could, but you still had a little bit of light and you were willing to do it even with that little bit of light. So I think it's more so tapping into like the hopefulness. You know what I mean? And like faith that something could happen. I think it's more so what I was tapping into in those moments, or just letting out a good scream and a good cry because you just needed to. You know? So yeah.
Well, there's some fan questions people wanted to ask. Are you
Yeah.
okay with that?
Yeah,
Okay.
totally.
All right. So, first one comes from Sophie. They ask, what makes Claire stand out to you the most from her journey from Resident Evil 2 to Death Island?
So the biggest thing, like I said, the cussing is a lot
Because
cleaner.
yeah.
Um, and she just feels way more in control. She just seems like she knows what she's doing, even though she's in Alcatraz and everything is hitting the fan. Um, so I think those are the two things versus RE2. She has zero control. So
Yes.
she's just like, oh my God, another thing coming at me. Oh my gosh, like, and but interestingly enough, if you look on both Resident Evil 2 and in Death Island, she still feels for people if they die or if they get hurt. That never goes away. So even though she's been through it a lot of times now, that part never goes away.
Next one comes from Ninth Raven. It's a long one. What was it like to transform into a peaceful and kind character who had no combat experience, but due to circumstances had to become an experienced fighter? And how did you approach showing this evolution in Claire while ensuring she retained her humanity throughout her journey?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I like to think so Claire still had some kind of training because she showed up with a gun. She was carrying. So, which I do understand because if let's say she was in a state where like she could carry and she was raised by her brother, she's riding a motorcycle by herself at night, she's a young girl, like who knows, maybe there's bears, out where she's around, like who knows. Anyway, so I think she had some sort of understanding of things. I think obviously no real world experience. And so I think in that sense, learning how to come at her where she feels young and naive, um, but capable was that's an interesting mix because you can't come out guns a-blazing like I know exactly what I'm doing and da 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 like you don't. And so I had to find that balance between the two. If you noticed when she pulls the cop Elliot, the first person, and she pulls him out and he dies, right?
Right.
And I remember saying, when we were shooting, I was like, "Can I just add like a little extra?" I was like, "This is the first time she sees something like that happen." They're like, "Oh my gosh, of course," And so those were the little moments where like our writer and director and the team for Capcom would like allow me to do that. And so we would discover that. So we would find those human moments. So like we kind of had like a rough draft of like, this is what we're going to say, but then after a while like the writer Brett would come to me and be like, "Hey, do you feel like this is good? Do you want to rework this with me?" And so I was like, "Oh, this is awesome." I was so glad that they let me do that with them and work alongside them because that added those human moments. So that was one of the things where I was like, that's a human moment. If I just pulled somebody and they just ripped in half, like I wouldn't just be like, "Oh, okay. Oh, look, he left his journal." You know what I mean? Like, that's where I wanted to make sure that, like, even though she's learning how to do these things, she still is a human. She still feels things. Things are still intense, like, and so yeah, I was just finding those little nuggets, which were really small. And it was just like a quick, like, "I'm so sorry." Done. Quick line, but it just to like show that that's a human moment that occurred.
Zena Valentine asks, what is your favorite moment so far being a voice actor?
I don't know if I have like a favorite moment. I think I get reminded a lot when I meet people, usually like at conventions. Like, sometimes you'll have like a quick interaction that's just like, "Oh, I just want your autograph." And like, but then you'll get like certain people that like connect with you in a certain way. So I think my favorite moments are the gifts that I get after the fact, because when you're doing the job, you don't know how people are going to react to it. You don't really know the response. So I guess like that's probably like my favorite moments per se. And also just playing. I have a lot of like funny, just like random things I talk about and say or think about when I'm in the booth or in the mocap, like volume. So yeah.
Wow, okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. The fan interactions is so wonderful to see, and people are jumping ship immediately on the first thing is fan arts. They're right there immediately, and they just draw so many things that he continues to keep on amping up, and people cosplaying and finding ways, and then presenting it to you, or you get to seeing that. I cannot imagine how it must be feeling like.
Oh, you know what? You know what's funny? Actually, I had one time there was a couple who cosplayed. Till this day, I don't know if they even knew who I was. And I said, "Oh, can I take a picture with you guys?" And they were Leon and Claire. And it was one
Wow.
of my first conventions. And till this day, they thought I was just like a person, be like, "Hey, can I take a photo with you?"
Oh my god. They must be going
I mean,
like,
maybe they found
no.
out, but oh,
Yeah.
and one other really lovely story. I helped somebody propose.
Oh.
That was a really, really cool story. So, but that was one of
Wonderful.
my favorites. I've actually been a part of some matchmaking a couple times now. So
Ooh.
yeah.
Okay. Well, look at you. That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Who would have thought? You know, crazy.
Listen, this opportunity has opened many doors and many hearts. Okay. So I am the owner of the heart key, right? So
Right. Oh man, the universe is bringing all this together. You would have never thought.
yeah.
And next question comes from HR Zone 2 Art. They ask if Claire could be in a Resident Evil co-op game, what character would you want her to be paired with?
Wait, a Resident Evil co-op
Resident
game,
Evil
they said.
co-op game, yes.
Okay. Who would I want to be? Hunk.
Okay, wow.
He's a total baddie. Like I was playing what was it? The missionary or what was the I think it was
Um,
I can't remember what the game was now. It was
Mercenary?
with 4 Mercenaries. There we go. I was like
Yes,
missionaries.
yes.
Mercenaries. In Mercenaries, he's such a badass. Like I was
Yes.
crushing as Hunk. So I would probably want to be paired with him. He's like, a man of little words, but like will get shit done. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Did not expect that answer, to be honest. Like, oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Pretty cool. Really nice. And next one comes from Aihara Elis. I could be pronouncing the name wrong. In another universe, Jill and Claire would be couples or besties.
I think it depends on how people want to pair them up. Again, I'm an equal opportunity, whatever you want to like pair them up in romantic ways. I feel like they would more likely, I mean, I don't know. Because neither one of them really shows romantic interest in the games, interestingly.
Yeah, don't think so.
So yeah, so that is kind of like a gray area. So I don't know. I could see them being really close friends though. And for anyone that's for like signings that I've done in the past with Nicole, who plays Joe Valentine, we got a really great artwork piece done that's the two of them having tea together, in the middle of the Raccoon City debauchery, and so yeah, so I could see them probably being besties. Um, yeah, I'd just be curious what kind of conversations that would be like. Jill would be like very, yeah, uh-huh. And then Claire would be like,
Gabriel asks, apart from Claire, which Resident Evil character or characters do you like the most?
I mean, I love to hate on Leon. I
Mhm.
love to hate on Leon, but I do have this like sweet spot for Leon. I just he feels like he's like this badass who like personal life wise has like no idea what's going on.
Right. Definitely not.
He's just like, huh? You know what I mean? In personal life, but in the world, I'm saving everyone and this and this and this and this. And I just think I find it, I kind of find it funny. So, yeah.
I think the one thing that he probably is focused on is keeping his hair perfect. He just has that hair game going strongly. I don't know what he does, but it's good.
He just spoke up that way. He just
It's
spoke
just,
up
yeah,
that way.
just
It's
woke
kind
up
of like,
down.
did you ever watch a show, How I Met Your Mother?
Of course, yes.
So Barney, how in every photo, doesn't matter what's going on, perfect shot,
Right.
That's it. You know, that's like, phew, Leon, perfect hair. Boom, perfect hair. Perfect hair. Like, yeah.
Oh my God, that's a comparison I never saw coming. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay. A Make Man, I think the name, asks, do you have any regrets or wished you did a scene differently in the game?
I don't think I have any regrets. I mean, I feel like every decision that I made for a reason then. So I don't really necessarily feel like I have any regrets as far as like wish that I had done it differently. I think it would have been nice to because that was like, you know, that was kind of like the beginning, the first time I was taking on such a big role. I think it would have been nice to have felt a little calmer about it, like the first like week or two, because I was pretty nervous. And then also maybe feeling calmer once the game came out. Because I know you had mentioned the E3 drop of the trailer, and I remember they only like had one line that they said of Claire's and was like, it's like a nightmare. And I hated it. And people were saying all this crap. I wish I'd never read the comments in the beginning because it got me too nervous. So then I had to wait months and months until it finally came out to go, oh no, actually it did well and people are happy. But in the beginning, it made me so nervous. So
Yeah,
yeah.
comments are not the place to read. Definitely never read comments. People are
No.
even worse now somehow. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely not read comments.
And you're always going to find somebody who's going to
Yeah.
complain about something behind the safety of their computer or the safety of their phone, but they'll
Yeah.
never tell you to your face.
Yeah. Last question comes from Ash. They ask, what music do you think Claire would listen to?
It's funny because the first thing that came to my head, I don't know why, but I feel like she's got like different sides to her. So I feel like she would be listening to like fun, like calming folk music, and then she would just go straight into like heavy metal screamo, like you know what I mean?
Okay.
Like I feel like she would be like, what mode is she in? You know what I mean? Like so, yeah.
Right. Yeah, if Mr. X is chasing, turn the switch up, it has got to be metal now. You have to run. This
Exactly.
guy
Or is
again.
it calm? Or is it like I need to stay
Could be.
calm?
Could be. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's an interesting mix of music. I think she might have a playlist, and like you never know. People will be surprised. Like, wow, that's the next song that they're listening. What the hell just happened? We were listening to some calming music, and now it's all screams.
And it's like disturbed, you know what I mean?
Just
Like, get down with the sickness. Like she's just
right.
like all in.
Oh my goodness. Well, Stephanie, thank you so much for taking the time today to talk to me about all of this Resident Evil, Genshin, everything. It was so fun to talk to you. You're so amazing. Thank you for everything you've done.
Aw, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for it being such an easy conversation.
I appreciate that. That means the world to me.